think the purpose for life for everybody is to remember who they truly are. Like, it's a journey of remembrance. We came into this body to forget, right? This amnesia thing. We forget to remember. So this whole journey in life is to find ourselves. Whether or not that happens for a specific individual is different, because they might have chosen something else to experience in this life. But at the end of the day, I think the soul's journey is beyond this lifetime. It stretches beyond that, because in each lifetime or each timeline, you're learning and experiencing different aspects of life. And when all of these gets pieced together, it's the journey of remembrance, of remembering the truth of who you truly are and what the truth is.
Welcome to a Broaderlands podcast.
The opinions expressed on Broaderlands podcasts are those of the guest speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of the host or Broaderlands podcast. Shora, welcome to Broaderlands podcast. What an honor to have you.
Thank you so much for having me.
And we're here to talk about your new rap album, Money Over. No, I'm just messing around.
Rap album. I wish I was a rapper.
Maybe we can start off with you sharing a little bit about who you are and what you do, if you don't mind.
Yeah, sure. So my name is Shora, and I am a cosmic channel. Sometimes I still struggle to introduce myself because I'm like, I feel like I'm a little bit of everything. But if I were to really condense it into a form or an expression, it would be a channel. So I got into channeling via the Akashic Records. That is actually one of the modalities that I use when I work with clients and read energy and access past life or tap into their galactic star family and their spirit team and their angelic council, light beings, basically, to connect with them and share whatever information that they wish to share with, whether it's an individual or a collective. So my mission really is to bring as much light to the world as possible. And that's actually the meaning of Shora. Like, it doesn't really have an exact meaning, but when I tune into the frequency of this name that I received, it feels like pure white light, and that I'm the conduit of this light that is being beamed onto Earth. So bringing in as much light as possible, assisting humanity in its evolution, and also assisting planet Earth on her evolution as well. So helping people to remember who they are, activating their divine soul blueprint and all that stuff.
I love that. You said clients. When you're working with somebody, what kind of work do you do for somebody when they come to you?
Yeah, so mostly when it's a one-on-one session, it's an activation. So I use light language as well as the Akashic Records to sort of tune into what my clients would need. So they'll come to me. Actually, a lot of them come to me and they're like, "Oh, I found you on YouTube, and I just felt like I need to receive something from you." And that's all that they have. They don't even have any questions about what is my past life, what is my purpose. So those are the general questions and then the common questions. But increasingly, I've been noticing that a lot of people come because they feel the calling, the nudge from, whether you call it God or, the universe or spirit team or their oversoul, higher self, guiding us together. Because in each session, I always believe that, two people or more are being brought together for for a higher divine purpose, like how we're doing this episode, there's something that wants to be shared. So when someone comes to me, there's something that their team wants them to know, their higher self wants them to know. So I'm basically the conduit, and when I do sessions for them through light language, it actually works on a very nuanced and subtle energetic level. It's very multidimensional, more than just the words that I'm saying. It How I see it is like the English words that I'm saying, it's just the surface, like 1% of what it actually is, and it works with the conscious mind, kind of like distracted a little bit, and then the energy and the transmission does the rest of the work on an even deeper layer. So that can be activation. It could be like a activating certain gifts that they came here to awaken to, and to use that to help the world as well, or help themselves. It could be a clearing, it could be healing. So it's hard to pinpoint what exactly I do, because I go in and I'm being guided to do what I'm being guided to do.
Like in the flow with healing.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. You're a co-author of the new book, The Beans. Can you share a little bit about that? How did you become a co-author for The Beans?
That's very interesting. So Amira, the founder of a Near Death Institute, I believe that's how we found each other as well. She sent me an email, and I think she saw a couple of my YouTube videos. I don't exactly remember how, and I always find it very beautiful and magical and mysterious how, people would just find me, or how I would find random people and like birth something into the world. So when Amira came to me, I was like, okay, I don't know if I have an experience. I do channel them. I'm very connected to the Pleiadians. That's actually the first ever, I guess, star beings, if you like to call them, that I encountered with and have seen in my meditations. And they work with me in the Akashic Records. So when she came to me, I wasn't sure, but I just resonated with her. The purpose of why she wanted to publish this book is to bring more awareness to the general public that people are tuning into these things, and a lot of people that do not know each other are tapping into similar things, similar frequencies, saying the same things. So there must be something, and it's just, to prepare the majority of the population for open contact, if that's were to come, and to sort of dissipate and dispel the fear and the negative perception of what these multidimensional beings are, because I think there's a lot of programmed fear in it, and that's the purpose of this project. So I really sort of resonated with it, and I just said yes, and I didn't even know what I was going to write in that chapter until it's so funny. Like, I was actually sitting in front of my computer, and I was like, okay, what should I write about? And I was just blank. Like, my mind was blank. I have no idea where to start. And I heard my team, or my oversoul, my higher self, they were telling me, don't start, because even if you did, you're going to scrap this whole thing, and it's just going to be a waste of time. So I was like, okay. And the part of me that's like, the part of me that's a little bit of a perfectionist, like a healing perfectionist, and I don't like doing things last minute. So I always like to finish things early rather than late. So that really like bothered me a lot, but I had to like, calm myself down and be like, okay, like, I'll just follow this. I just follow this message. So after a couple of author calls with the rest of the people who co-authored the book, someone mentioned the word hybrids, and she pointed out to me in the group call. She was like, Jamie, do you know you're a hybrid? And I'm like, well, it's been quite some time since I've heard the word hybrids. I've heard it before, a couple of months ago. And when she said that, it sort of activated something in me, like a remembrance. And the next day, I sort of had this whole flashback of memory that I wrote in the book, of beings walking on my spine in the middle of the night. And I actually forgot about it. I wrote it down in my journal somewhere, but I forgot about it. And when she mentioned hybrids, that triggered the remembrance, the memory. And then I was told, okay, you're supposed to write this in a book. Because many people have had similar experiences, but they might have forgotten or chose to forget it or have had it and were afraid and didn't know what was happening to them. And part of my mission is to help, these people, this group of people who have volunteered to come to Earth to assist in humanity's awakening at this time and age, to help them remember why they came and to walk their path to fulfill this mission that they're on. Yeah.
Thank you. And that's the name of your chapter, Hybrids.
Yeah.
What's the difference between a hybrid and a starseed?
Yeah. This is something that, really messed up with my mind early in the beginning of the journey. And as I was writing this chapter, I sort of opened up to like a channeling state and the beings of how do I pronounce this? Alcyon from the Pleiades, Alcyon. I always my brain always just messes up with the pronunciation and
I was
second
like,
guess
don't ask
myself.
me.
So, yeah, there are different stars within the Pleiades star cluster, and Alcyon is one of them. And when they came to me, I wasn't actually familiar with the beings from this particular star in the Pleiades. So I was like, am I making this up? But I saw the spelling of this star, and I went to Google it, and I was like, oh my god, okay, that makes sense now. And when I was in that channeling state, I actually did ask. I asked that being, what's the difference between a starseed and a hybrid? And what she told me was that actually every one of us are starseeds because we come from the stars. And if we talk about the seeding of humanity, which, people might believe in this or not, but this is just what I've received. And when you listen to these stories that I'm sharing, just kind of put your mind aside and have an open heart and open mind. You don't have to take it so literally. You don't have to believe in everything that I say, but this is something that I receive, and it could resonate with you, and that might activate something in you. Star seeds, yes. So the seeding of humanity was actually done by many different star beings. Pleiadians are one of them. The Octorians are another one of them, and a couple of others. They each have different roles, but the Pleiadians were very much the main ones and still the guardians of humanity. So if we think about it that way, we are all star beings, really. And the reason why there is a sort of like a separation, which is an illusion anyway, we gotta separate to unite. We gotta forget to remember. It's always the opposite of the something that our soul chose to come here to learn, that we learn from. So if we choose to come here to learn about unconditional love, then perhaps a lot of the times we go through things like judging others, like conditional love, betrayal, things like that, to learn what it is to love unconditionally. So going back to the whole starseed thing, we all come from the stars, and that the meaning of what a starseed is in the spiritual community is very much representing the group of beings, people who awaken to their starseed mission, or the group of beings who came here at this very important, pivotal time of humanity and planet Earth's evolution to assist in this greater plan, this greater mission of ascension. So, what the spiritual community is referring to, who they're referring to as a starseed, are these group of people. But again, these are just labels and categorizations to, yeah, I guess, help our brain make sense of things in a categorical way or linear way. But we're essentially all starseeds. But the difference between a starseed and a hybrid is actually a being that has a combination of not only the human DNA, but also the DNA of a galactic being, an extraterrestrial, a multidimensional being. So these beings are very intentionally first volunteered to take on a human body as a hybrid, a mix. Second, they are biologically actually different. It might not be so apparent, but the DNA structure of hybrids are actually much more, what is the word, malleable, programmable than a normal human being. And the reason is because how I see it is that we're all sort of conduits. We're all like pillars of light. Our central channel, our spine, is how information flow through from the crown all the way through our central channel, out of the soles of our feet, out of the base of our spine, anchoring it into planet Earth. So as we go through this collective ascension and the shift into the what they call 5D world, the new Earth, there is a lot of new light, high frequency light codes and information that is coming in from outside of planet Earth. And not everybody's bodies are able to process and receive these high frequency codes. It's like a balloon. If a balloon is not elastic enough and you keep pumping it with air, it's gonna burst. Versus a balloon that's, really elastic, you can pump it a lot and it grows bigger and bigger and bigger. So I kind of see it like that fundamentally a hybrid and a starseed or a human is built different in order to achieve its specific purpose of why it came here. Yeah.
Do you believe there's a new spirituality emerging? Because in some of the spiritual communities, you can't talk about this kind of stuff, which you're just explaining. But now it seems like it's expanding. These conversations are expanding within this. I think it all goes together, but it's been separated for some reason for a very long time.
It's the expansion of consciousness as well. As more light starts to come in, as our consciousness starts to expand, which is what the beings are working on, a lot of these hybrids, and to expand the consciousness so that we as hybrids go out there to spread these words, but they're not just words because it's actually energetic as well. Yeah.
Going back to your chapter, you had this memory come to you, and man, I haven't read your whole chapter yet, your story, but in the very beginning, it starts off profound. It just like it catches my attention from the very beginning. You said you woke up to three beings in front of you, and
Mm-hmm.
you were you were abducted, not physically, but like kind of like remote viewing, conscious through
Yeah.
consciousness, right?
Yeah.
And they had like a gun-like object, and they were squirting something in your spine, and
Yes.
right, and then they
Yes.
the next day you woke up and you knew this wasn't a dream, and decided to meditate on what you experienced, and you heard um hybrid. What was it? Hy- hy-
Um,
something program.
Hybridization program.
Yeah.
Yes.
I knew something
It's
like
been a
that.
while since I wrote that chapter.
Yeah. But anyways, yeah, that's powerful. Would you expand on your experience, if you don't mind?
Sure. Yes. So initially when I was invited to co-author this book with a couple of authors, I had no idea what I was going to write in the book. I know that I channel, and that I channel the Pleiadians, the Pleiadian High Council. They're a group of beings. They refer to themselves as the Council of Five. So really a group of light beings that are very connected with the Pleiadians. I work with them and I channel information from them often. So it just felt like, okay, it makes sense for me to be in this book, but what am I going to write about? I had completely no
Yeah.
idea, but I just resonated with the project, the purpose of the project, which is to really dispel the fear of contact with extra dimensional beings, and to bring this awareness to as many people as possible, that there are people out there who are communicating, there are people out there who are having interactions, might not be physically, but with consciousness. So I said yes to the book, and I had no idea what I was going to write. My team actually told me, like, don't start on the book until you receive clear guidance, because otherwise you're going to be wasting time. So I was like, okay, that's very specific instructions. I'll wait. And then a couple of weeks later, I believe, we had a call with all the authors together, and someone mentioned the word hybrids and specifically pointed out to me, like, hey, do you know that you're a hybrid? And that, like, triggered and activated the memory of what you were talking about, this memory that I had forgotten completely. It was somewhere in my journal, but I completely forgot about it. It didn't even occur to me to write about that. And so when she said that, the next day, I had this whole flashback of this memory that I've forgotten. So I was in bed, and it was, I don't know what time it was, but it was like in the middle of the night. I woke up, and I was like in between the states of like still asleep, but I'm awake, but falling and drifting back to sleep. And I was sleeping on my side. So what I sensed were three beings on my back, at like equidistant to each other, three beings along my spine, and they were like miniature beings. They were just like holding this gun-like thing with green translucent liquid in it, and they were like injecting it into my spine. And I remember my first thought was, holy crap, like, what the heck are you doing to me? Like, I did not consent to this. And then the sensation I got was, don't worry, this is okay. Like, it's not anything bad. We're not doing anything bad to you. And then I just drifted off to bed. And the next morning I woke up, and I remembered this weird thing that happened. It wasn't a dream. I actually felt it. It wasn't a dream. And I decided to meditate on it and ask what actually happened. Did I make things up in my mind, or is it something that actually happened? So as I was meditating, I was brought to a spaceship, a craft, and there was nobody there. It was like, it almost felt like a laboratory. Everything was white, and it smelled and felt very sterilized, very clean. And I saw a couple of like microscopes and tubes on the side, like life-size tubes. And then I saw like humans in a fetus-like position in the tube. I was like, oh my God, are they cloning humans? What the heck is going on here? As soon as I had that thought, a being appeared beside the tube, and it's actually one of the Pleiadian beings working on the ship, and she said, oh, this is the hybridization program. And I was like, what the heck is the hybridization program? And that was when the information about what a hybrid is, what a starseed is, and the seeding of hybrids on Earth came through. Yeah.
So you're in a laboratory basically.
Yeah, I was in a laboratory on the craft.
Were you given any other information or?
I think the information that they wanted me to share was mostly to sort of, that chapter was to serve as an activation for hybrids reading the chapter, really, because a lot of hybrids don't know that they are one. But the sort of common realization I've seen in many hybrids is that they think very differently from how people are operating on this level. It's like if you think about an operating system, we have the Windows operating system and we have the iOS, right? The Apple's operating system. It's like hybrids run on iOS and, the rest of humanity runs on Windows. And when you try to put a iOS to run on a Windows computer, it doesn't work. But it doesn't mean that this software is faulty. It doesn't mean that this operating system is faulty. It's just because it's built differently and it serves a different purpose. So a lot of hybrids don't realize that, and they feel like they can't fit in. It's actually more than what we term as starseeds. They feel like, I think a lot of starseeds would resonate that, you don't fit in, and you've always felt alone, and you've always felt like more connection to the star than on planet Earth. But hybrids are literally it's like 1,000 times more. And a lot of the decisions that we, like how we make decisions and just things, it's just fundamentally operating at such a different level that it's disorienting at times. And if hybrids don't realize that, they will always constantly think that like something's wrong with me. But in fact, nothing's wrong with you. You're just more advanced. You are sort of like living out the future that you're bringing into this 3D right now. You're bringing the 5D into the 3D right now, which is why it feels so disorienting. So that's important for hybrids to realize, and that will awaken something within them.
Do you find some hybrids leaning to addiction because it's so intense?
Yes. So that is the shadow and the dark side of it, that if the psyche can't cope with the awakening process, it might break them. It's sort of like a really fine line. It will either make you or it will break you. And I believe that as a hybrid coming into Earth with a mission, right? It's quite impossible that you cannot get out of the darkness unless you choose to stay in the darkness. Yeah. And that's part of the reason why I feel like people like myself and others who channel, it is important to channel and sort of share the truth. It's not just about light, it's also about darkness. And you can't just always focus on the light, because the awareness of duality needs to be there to raise that awareness, such that when that comes, because darkness will come in your journey. That's shadow work. People talk about shadow work, but what really is shadow work? What is an initiation into your 2.0 version of yourself? What is the initiation into your higher self? A lot of shadow work. And if you don't see that light that's always within you, it's easy to sort of go to the other polar opposite and think that, oh, this life is suffering and that this is too much. Why did I choose to be here? And yes, there are souls that actually choose to go to that path, which is actually the law of the universe. Like everything needs to be in balance and harmony, like energy needs to be in balance. So when the light rises so much, darkness actually grows more intense as well, because it is the backdrop for the light. But if we look at it from the one's perspective, like, the 0 point field, pure consciousness, that is, darkness and light is just an expression of source. So not one is bad and the other is good, but both needs to coexist. Yeah.
The two got to become one and
Mm-hmm.
integrate them.
Mm-hmm. And that is like the yin and the yang, the feminine and the masculine, the dark and the light. Yeah. Unity.
Yeah, I love that. Thank you. You talk about in your story that right after that experience, you started to get downloads. Could you define what a download is to you?
Messages that I receive, memories, information. Usually it happens in meditation. I receive that and clarifications through meditation, but it's actually, what I've realized is that you might be doing something. Like you might be cleaning the dishes, you might be mopping the floor one day, having lunch, taking a shower, and you get hit by this realization. Like, oh my gosh, that is like, to me, a download. Receiving a transmission, receiving a message.
Thank you. So, what was your upbringing? Did you grow up with like religion or spirituality, or how did you have your awakening? Did you come in awakened? How did it all look for you?
No. Actually, I grew up in I wouldn't say a religious family. Like my parents, they don't have a religion. I myself do not have a religion. My grandparents do. So they are actually Taoists. In my
Okay.
culture, we call this religion Taoist. And yeah, they pray to God and stuff like that. But as a child, I never really resonated with a specific religion. I went to a Catholic school when I was young, and then in high school I went to a Christian school. None of it by choice. It was just like I was just placed there. And like grew up in a family where, my grandma would like pray to God, would light the incense, and every specific time of the year would, burn stuff to our ancestors. So I grew up in sort of, and in Singapore, it's very, a lot of religion live together very harmoniously. We're a multiracial country, so we can have the mosque right beside the church, and that's fine. So I've always been exposed to sort of, various religion, but never really resonated with one particularly. But I've always kind of felt like, there is something beyond us, and that was just it. I was raised as a very logical person, at least try to be. And yeah, like there's this whole path that was set out for me in Singapore. You go through this stage of education, and then the next stage, and then the next stage, and then once you're done with uni, you go out to the corporate world and you get a job and like just get on with life. So I never explored myself outside of that. And the awakening started happening when I was actually during the pandemic, because I was like cooped up at home and I just started to explore. Back then, the New Age manifestation was a big thing. Like people said, "Oh, I manifested a 6-figure business. I manifested this. I manifested the love of my life," and like it sounded like, "Wow, this thing works." And so I decided to delve deeper into that, but more towards the quantum metaphysics side of manifestation and how that all sort of works. So, working with the mind, and working with vibration, with frequency. But the interesting thing is the spiritual side of manifestation. I've always like tried not to look at it. I'm like, oh, that's too woo woo. Like the term woo woo. that's like that doesn't work. I don't believe in that. So I was very anti spiritual manifestation, which is funny how manifestation was actually the thing that got me into the Akashic Records. It was through manifestation that I started this journey of like sharing some of my reflections on my Instagram page. And then that's how I got connected to people from different parts of the world. And one particular person who was a follower back then and now a good friend, she told me to listen to this podcast, and I listened to it, and I just felt so drawn to the Akashic Records. My brain was like, no, Jamie, no, Shora, don't go there. And it just, something was just pulling me there. And I decided to take the course. I finished it in a day and just started to channel. Like, it felt so natural to me. I never questioned, like, am I making this up? Of course, there are days where I'm like, maybe, but the whole process of going into it and starting to speak, I just started to voice record myself because there was so much information coming through. And that was what started my journey. And then slowly it just was like it's like peeling off layers of an onion. Every step of the way, you're just peeling off this, peeling off that, working on certain things. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, damn, this girl's pretty dope. She knows how about third eye activation, the chakras, the Akashic records. Could you share a little bit about the Akashic records? What do you know about it? Is it
Hmm.
just a library?
Well, we've been taught many things. I've been taught, what the Akashic Records is as well. To me, it's like a quantum library.
Hmm.
And recently, actually just yesterday, I was listening to this hypnosis session on Robert Edward Grant.
Hmm.
And his consciousness, his oversoul, high self, subconscious mind, actually mentioned that the Akashic Records is actually like a blockchain technology. And that resonated with me
Hmm.
so much because what I've been told and taught is that the Akashic Records is, yeah, a metaphysical library where it holds information, or rather, not memories, but mostly emotions encoded in the Akashic Records by specific souls who have been through multiple lifetimes. So all your lifetimes, all the emotions from trauma or from a great memory is encoded in your Akashic Records. And when you access the Akashic Records, there is what is called the librarians, or the gatekeepers, of the guardians of the Akashic Records, that will sort of scan you and be like, okay, you're allowed to come here and receive information. And then individually, let's say I'm reading your Akashic Records, your team,
No, don't read them.
your sorry.
I said, don't read them.
Yeah, actually, I have to get consent. So part of that is consent from the person. And if I don't have consent from you, for example, your team would be like, okay, you do not have access to this. So there are sort of beings that are guarding the collective Akashic Records as well as the individual Akashic Records. And when Robert Edward Grant revealed that Akashic Records is kind of like a blockchain, it makes so much sense because it's not just one person that's gonna allow you to access it. Your team and the team of others, because we're so interconnected, have to all give the okay, access granted kind of permission, and then you can receive only what you can receive for that person that you're reading for, whether it's myself, I'm receiving for myself, or you. Yeah. So it's through the Akashic Records that a lot of the times reveals information about, for example, why you have a specific connection with this other person when you have not met that person at all. So they might give you, they might reveal the exact past life. A lot of the times it happens in flashes. Like I'd see like a vision of something, and I'd, sort of just literally describe it to my client, and they will intuitively feel into it. A lot of the times they already know, or people have told them before, like they've done other readings before and people have told them and seen the same thing. But the most important thing is not so much what happened in that lifetime, but more of why this lifetime is coming up for you in this life. What is the higher purpose? There's always a purpose as to the remembrance. Why are you feeling this feeling with this person? What needs to be resolved? Yeah. So the Akashic gives information about these kind of things.
Appreciate that. And speaking of past lives, you had a past life with Atlantis in Egypt, ancient Kemet. Would you like to touch on that for us?
Sure, that's a big one. I can talk about it for days. Yeah, this whole journey has been very, very cryptic. It started when I was in Bali, and I just felt a very strong Atlantean Lemurian frequency from Bali. And I had a vision of myself with another being who was half human and half mermaid. So the top of the body was a male body, and then the bottom half was like a mermaid's tail, and he was holding a trident. That was my first ever memory of Atlantis. And we were overlooking the ocean, and the feeling I got was a sense of longing and a sense of hope. It was like a mixed bag of feelings. I was feeling so sad. I was longing for this place to be there, but there was a sense of hope that would come back together. Like this whole thing would be back. So that was all that I saw. And then a series of events led me back to Bali and it revealed more and more. And I received, when I was in Bali and I was really guided to be in the ocean through surfing. So in the ocean, I think the ocean also activated a lot of memories of Atlantis, and particularly the fear of water. Like I love the ocean, but there's a deep fear within me that I can't explain. And I sort of received the message that it was due to the destruction of Atlantis when there were huge tidal waves, like tsunami, and this whole catastrophe that happened. And I have a really big fear of lightning and thunder as well, and that's a part of when Atlantis fell. So I have a lot of trauma there to unpack, and it had to be healed through the ocean, so being in the ocean and sort of communing with Mama Ocean and letting her teach me and heal me. So as that happened, I started to receive more memories, and then I received the message that, oh, I'll be in Egypt sometime the end of 2024 or early 2025. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. I have always been intrigued, and I found myself watching documentaries on like Disney Plus and trying to like find documentaries in Egypt. But everything that was in those documentaries never really resonated on a deep level. I always felt like there's something more, like you're not getting there, like, and I couldn't find it anywhere else. So sort of forgot about that. And when the message about Egypt came, I was like, oh, I don't know if I want to be in Egypt. Like, I've never desired to travel there or go there for a holiday. So I was like, yeah, whatever. If it happens, it happens. And then a bunch of memories sort of started to flood back with regards to how post destruction of Atlantis, I actually fled to Egypt, and I had vivid visuals, like in my third eye. I saw myself actually teaching in a mystery school underneath, like underground, the Great Pyramid of Giza. And the word that I heard was mystery school. And I was passing down this knowledge to selected individuals, sort of like wisdom keepers. They're the ones that would pass down to the chosen ones. And then it's like a full circle moment of me going back to Egypt. In the next 2 weeks, I'm actually going to be in Egypt to be there to receive what I shared on that land. And then they told me that, okay, that is going to, once that is done, it will then show me what the next steps are in Bali. So I've been called to Bali for the next couple of years to be there. I have received bits and pieces of what's coming and what I'm supposed to do there, essentially grid work, but not the full picture yet. And they said, okay, don't worry, after the Egypt trip, it's gonna make sense to you. Like, Bali's gonna make sense to you. And I'm like, okay.
To be continued, huh?
To be continued. That's life.
That's awesome. You also have some an ayahuasca experience. I would love to learn a little bit about that if you don't mind. How beneficial has that been for your soul journey?
So I received, or rather the awareness of ayahuasca came to me probably about 3 or 4 years ago, or maybe even more. It was during the pandemic where I was having a conversation with someone on a podcast, and she asked me if I've ever done an ayahuasca ceremony, and I was like, what is ayahuasca? I had to like Google and didn't even know how to spell it back then. So I had to like do it by phonics and try to search it. And I looked at it and I was like, oh my gosh, this is psychedelics. Never gonna touch that. So so I like shoved it aside and I was like, you know what, I'm not gonna, if I'm supposed to do it, I will do it. So fast forward to a couple of years later, I then received a very specific message that I'll be doing a ceremony, and it just all came together. And when I was doing the ceremony, I literally didn't know what I was going in there for. I just knew that I needed to do it. It just resonated with me so deeply. And I did only one sitting. And it's a I think for people who have done ayahuasca, you know that it's quite brutal. You hear stories about, you know, big purges and, you know, screaming and crying and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And it, yeah, diarrhea. It really depends on individuals. I would say some actually go through a smooth sailing journey. But for me, I did have a couple of purge through the mouth, and also through like emotional release. So like crying, I had a lot of crying, and then I didn't know what I was crying about. But there was just stuff that needed to come out, and it was a really interesting experience because it was during the ceremony where I sort of almost like I was having a conversation with the universe or the plant spirit, and it told me that I will be in Bali for the next 3 years. And back then I was actually about to get married and settle down in Singapore. So this whole thing just completely really tripped me up. I was like, how is this going to happen? I'm not going to believe that this is going to happen, but deep down I knew that somehow I would be in Bali. So there were many, like, in the whole journey, it felt like chapter 1, chapter 2, chapter 3, and like different things that came in that didn't really link to each other. And I must say that it was really hard to wrap my mind around and understand what the heck was shown to me during the ceremony. And this is something that only after a year of doing that first ceremony, now I look back and I'm like, oh, this was what it's all about. This was what they meant by certain things about to happen. This is what the vision meant. And I would say that ayahuasca is really not for the faint-hearted, because it's for the people who are really brave enough to see the deepest parts of themselves. A lot of the times, a lot of these shadows come up in ceremonies, and you're being made to confront them. And it's all part of the peeling off of the layers, peeling off of the different layers that have been put onto you, whether that is programming or, certain experiences and conditioning, and reveal your essence, your true self. So I think people don't say this often in the spiritual community, that when you step on your journey of remembrance, it's not all love and light. It's not all like, unicorns, rainbows, butterflies, like light and sparkles everywhere. Like, yes, that is part of the journey, but the opposite exists as well. Duality. And that's just the law of the universe, that the brighter you shine, you actually meet the deepest parts of yourself. And it takes a really, really brave and fearless soul to look at these parts of themselves and reconcile them. So I think that is the biggest lesson for me. And through that journey is that you can't just chase for light, because it's lopsided. It's lopsided. It's not balanced. And that's not how the universe works. And, shadow work, many initiations that you'll go through. It's definitely sort of flipped my life upside down, but in a good way. And I see that as a realignment back to my truth, instead of a destruction. I think a lot of people might view these ceremonies as like, I don't know, like, how some people in who are not into these kind of things, they would immediately judge as, this is like dark stuff that they're working with. Like, why would you do these kind of things? And like your life is now completely ruined. I'm like, no, actually, this is part of the remembrance. It is a realignment back to your truth. So yeah.
Thank you. Another topic that you kind of brought up earlier is past life trauma. A lot of people probably don't believe in it, but I think epigenetics is kind of teaching us a little bit about that. But when we do inner work in this life, we're healing from past lives. Or do you believe we can have multiple lives all at one time, or is it reincarnation, incarnation? Like, what's your take on
Yeah.
all that?
I think at this point, we all know that time is not linear. And that even reincarnation, the concept of reincarnation is based off linear time. Like,
Yeah.
I died in that life and then I reincarnate and now I'm that of me, but in this time. Like, even that is linear. To me, I believe that everything is happening in the now.
Oh,
Yes, all at once. So, whenever we make a decision, a major decision, for example, should I quit my job or should I continue to be staying in this 9 to 5 job? The part of you in this timeline that decided, okay, I'm going to quit, there's actually a split off, like a parallel you that's living that timeline of which you didn't, like the other opposite choice, that a choice or choices. So I believe that all this is happening like in the now, in the present. There's no past, present, future. It's all now. And that's why when we do healing on ourselves, and really the work is focusing on ourselves, because when we focus on ourselves and, you know, we're interconnected. So when we work on ourselves, we're actually not only changing the past, or well, I wouldn't say change, but healing our past or our ancestral stuff. We're also shifting the future. Everything is like kind of in motion. Nothing is actually set in stone.
Which we can create a new earth. Do you believe there's a new earth emerging right now as we speak?
It's already there. I believe that it is more so a bandwidth of frequency more than, our logical mind likes to think and like put conclusions to things in a very weird way. Like, oh, there's a new planet that we're shifting into, or, what's going to happen is Earth going to implode or explode. um, to me, I think it's like radio stations. Like how there are multiple frequencies, right? Radio stations actually out there. We can't see it with our naked eyes, but we can tune into the specific radio frequency to tune into a specific radio station to then listen to the song that's coming through that radio station. But it doesn't mean that when you're tuned into one, the rest doesn't exist. It exists. So we're now just tuned into, oh, this 3D Earth. But the 5D Earth is there. It's a matter of us tuning our vibration, our frequency, to match that frequency of the 5D Earth, the new Earth. And I believe, and that's something, a message that I've been receiving from my team, my guides as well, that people are already actually in a new Earth. They're vibrating in that state. So their reality, the way that they live, the way that they think, the way that they manage money is very different from people who are still vibrating and living in this 3D. And there are specific parts of Earth's location where it's vibrationally more 5D than other parts of the world. So you might be called to a specific place and you can feel literally that it feels different, and the people living here almost feels like they're living a different reality. And then when you go back home, you're like, oh my gosh, I'm back into this reality. So that's the difference in the frequency, the bandwidth of frequency.
Thank you. How would you define 3D versus 5D? And why does 4D always get left out?
I think 4D is the transition. Like
Yeah, the
it's like the
bridge.
bridge, yeah.
Yeah, me too.
Which we a lot of us, especially people who are in this line of work, are like in, I wouldn't say specifically in the 4D, but bridging. They're between the 3 and the 5, bridging the two realms. 3D is like the matrix, right? And 5D is an earth, like heaven on earth. Things that you thought wouldn't be possible is possible there. It's very much based off love, like pure divine love, unconditional love. Everybody lives in community. There's no competition of I need to be better than you. Everybody helps each other. Even if we're not related by blood, we are family. It's unity consciousness. And yeah, they are like just the way that people act and think there is very much different. Even how, like, now we have politicians and leaders and stuff like that. What I'm seeing in a new earth is there's none of that. Everybody sort of is decentralized but yet united at the same time. And there's no need for one person to rule a community or a country or a specific region, because everybody is on the same page. And there will be new money systems, and it's just abundance, like an overflow of abundance.
More in harmony with one another, right?
Yes, and also living in harmony with nature. That's the most important thing. Like respecting it, the rhythms of nature, and learning from nature.
Thank you. What would you define the purpose of life?
In general or my specific? Okay, I guess I have the answer for both. So
Yeah,
I think
thanks.
the purpose for life in life for everybody is to remember who they truly are. Like it's a journey of remembrance. We came into this body to forget, right? This amnesia thing. We forget to remember. So this whole journey in life is to find ourselves. Whether or not that happens for a specific individual is different because they might have chosen something else to experience in this life. But at the end of the day, I think the soul's journey is beyond this lifetime. It stretches beyond that because in each lifetime or each timeline, you're learning and experiencing different aspects of life. And when all of these gets pieced together, it's the journey of remembrance, of remembering the truth of who you truly are and what the truth is. For myself, my purpose really is to help people on this path. To help people remember who they are. And like I mentioned in the beginning, it's to assist humanity in its ascension. Yeah.
So instead of dope dealer, you're a hope dealer, which means help other people evolve.
Help other people evolve. Yeah.
I appreciate it. One of your specialties is light language, and I'd love for you to share what light language is. And
Mm.
yeah,
Light language. I think a lot of people have a preconceived understanding and notion of what light language is because of the word light. It's often associated with light beings. Like you're speaking the language of the Pleiadians or the Arcturians or I don't know the Andromedans and Syrians, like galactic language. But to me, I think light language is really an individual's expression of how they receive and translate energy. And so that expression can be very different. It's not so much what it sounds like, but it's more of how it feels when someone else receives a light language transmission from me or from someone else. And when there is a resonance, that's when there's a connection. Because everything in the universe is energy. Like energy is the universal language. So instead of light language, I think maybe you can call it soul language, the language of the universe, the universal language. That is energy. And some people might not be guided to speak it. They actually might be more artistic in a way where they paint it. They paint something, they write something, or they dance. Aesthetic dancing or expression of the body, twerking, body
sorry.
movements. Like all these things are an individual's expression of energy that's flowing through them, whether it's an expression of their own energy or whether it's an expression of an energy that's, let's say, Mother Earth's frequency or, source frequency or an angel's frequency or the fairies or the dragons. So, yeah, light language is not meant to be learned. A lot of people ask me, how can I learn light language? Do you have a course to teach me how to learn light language? Is this language the Pleiadian language or is this the Arcturian language? And there's a lot of things to unpack there. Essentially, it cannot be translated word for word because it's a string of vibration that transmits a specific energetic signature. And if you have heard of, like, I mean, Sanskrit mantras are, you know, Sanskrit itself is, I feel like it's almost like light language, but the sages in the past, the gurus in the past during the light age, before this, dark age, before the Kali Yuga cycle, um, they had access to this information, and they were able to sort of put a specific vibratory sound to a meaning, but this meaning isn't exactly like 100% direct translation. So when a specific mantra is being chanted, oftentimes you search on Google, oh, what does the Ganesh mantra mean? Or what does this mantra mean? You get different versions of explanation. And the reason is not because one is right or the other is wrong, but more so the essence of it is there. But the direct translation of it depends on the individual, how he or she received it, what he or she is going through in their own journey. But the essence of Ganesha, for example, is that of the removal of obstacles. So when you chant the mantra, even if you don't know about that, you might feel, oh, this feels very powerful. It feels like it's working on something, it's clearing something. And that is basically like the new earth communication through frequency, through energy.
Doesn't mantra mean like man means mind and tra means release? I
Oh,
forget. I
I
believe so.
remember I remember that I read this somewhere, but I can't be 100% sure.
What's your specialty in light language? Like, do you sing or do you speak it? Do you have any
Mm,
examples?
examples. I don't know if I can just blurt out a couple of you can go to my YouTube channel and you can check them
Yeah.
out. It's all there. um I sometimes sing, so I most of the time I just speak it.
Hmm.
So I would, when I channel, it's like I would say something and then the light language will come through and then I'll continue saying something else, but it's all like part of it. It's all weaved into each other. The light language serves as like, oh, working on different layers deeper than the words the human language can work on, the logical side of the mind. Um but I did realize when I play my drums, for example, or when I am at specific places. There was once I was at the ocean and I just felt like I need to sing something, and that's when it starts to come through. Yeah.
Thank you. There's one I found on your page I really love. Like I'll have to show you that later. It's beautiful. But anyways, yeah, thank you. I'm gonna ask you a couple more quick questions if you don't mind.
No worries.
What's your definition of what people call God or your inner standing or source?
My understanding of source or God. Wow, this is a hard question. um
I think it's beyond the mind.
yeah, that's why it's hard, because how can
Yeah.
you define
Right.
God?
Yeah.
You can't really put a word to it. You experience it.
It's kind of like when I'm drinking water and you never drank water before and I'm trying to explain how the water tastes. It's kind of hard. You
Yeah,
have to experience it
it's
for yourself.
yeah, you have to experience it for yourself, and it's a connection more than a definition that, or even like physical representation of a being that is associated with God. I think on this topic, you know how we have the different gods in the different religion. There's like, Jesus, there's goddess Guan Yin, there is
Krishna.
Krishna, yeah, like all these in different cultures and different religion. At the end of the day, really, what I was being told in one of the channeling sessions was that these are simply the forms that God or source takes to sort of match our frequency. Meaning that, of course, it's not going to show you just light, because you might be like, oh, it might be the sun. If you don't believe it, or if it's a form that scares you, it defeats the purpose. So it will shapeshift into, let's say, a butterfly. That could be God. Yeah, it could shapeshift into, Jesus, if you believe in Jesus, and it comes to you through that and communicates to you through that archetype, through that form. But more than what we see, the form of what it takes, Krishna, Shiva, Brahma, God, Guan Yin, Jesus, like Mary Magdalene, all these things, they are just frequencies, frequencies of God. And when we're at different frequencies, these different archetypes, they would match us, and then they would connect with us in that way, which I think personally is not, again, it's not that, this God is real, that God is real, this is fake, that is not, it's not about that. It's everything is actually part of God, part of source, connecting with us. Yeah.
And that's a beautiful way of explaining it. Explaining the avatar.
The avatar.
That the Hindus talk. Yeah, because that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense. So thank you. If you had, picture yourself on a big screen right now, and everyone in the world's tuned in to listen to one message you had to say to the world. If you had one message to tell the world, everybody's tuned in, what would you say to the world?
Oh, should I prepare for this? Wow. I would say, like, love. Just be love, spread as much love as you can, and don't be afraid to love with your heart. I think the essence is more of, don't be afraid to trust your heart. I think we've been told otherwise. At least in my upbringing, it's like, don't listen to your heart because it's going to hurt you. Like, that's not logical. But the heart space is how we actually connect within and to God, to source, to the universe. It's through the heart space, specifically, actually, the high heart space. So it's only through this space where we will remember what it truly is. And oftentimes it comes through the frequency of this unconditional love.
Well, thank you. You said something very similar to Akasha Hawaii. I don't know if you know who she is, but she said something very similar. It's pretty cool.
Really? Okay, yeah. I gotta check her out. After this, you gotta send me her information.
Yeah, I will. I'm gonna end it with the thanks for coming on. I'm gonna end it with the Dolores Cannon quote.
Oh, I love Dolores Cannon.
Oh, you do? Awesome. And she said, "We are moving into a new world, and the old negativity will be left behind. Through the law of cause and effect, we can change the world one person at a time." And thank you for helping with that. I really appreciate everything you do.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Namastizzle.
Namaste.
Just know we out here. Know we out here working in a major way. Had to speak on it just to make a play. Any given subject, know we make a way. Time to level up on the day-to-day. Know we out here working for the greater good. Expand your mind, broaden your lens the way you should. From the stars to the galaxy to speak on spirituality. Higher understanding for the neighborhood.